Each day, the Grand Forks International Airport serves hundreds of takeoffs and landings from all facets of aviation, including corporate, air transport, cargo, general aviation, and numerous UND Aerospace training flights. In fact, during peak seasons, UND Aerospace students alone perform over 1,000 landings at the Grand Forks Airport during a single day. And in this fury of activity, the standard airport traffic pattern is the great organizer, so to speak, in this veritable airport beehive, and is the reason that pilots can safely operate into congested terminal areas time and time again. On today's UND AeroCast, we're going to break down for you, the student pilot, every aspect of a standard traffic pattern that will become a part of everyday life as your career as a pilot progresses. For argument's sake, this episode will be built around traffic pattern standardization in the UND Aerospace Piper Warrior 3. Keep in mind that the principles involved with a good traffic pattern are similar between all aircraft, even though the specific operating procedures may be different. According to the UND Aerospace Standardization Manual, the objective of practicing airport traffic patterns is to develop the pilot's knowledge of the rules and procedures involved with airport traffic patterns. Just as a car on a road adheres to specific traffic rules, so too does an airplane around an airport. The only difference between the car and the airplane, however, is that the car can stop when need be, as the airplane can only slow down or divert course. And since several aircraft may need to use that same strip of pavement, standardized rules and procedures are necessary to govern the safe and orderly flow of air traffic to that runway. Simply put, a traffic pattern is a rectangle. It is a rectangle with defined legs, altitudes, and direction of traffic flow. The specifics of these parameters are usually based on the local conditions at the specific airport. The traffic pattern utilizes entry and exit procedures published in the Airman's Information Manual and can be controlled by an airport's control tower or through the use of air-to-air communication between pilots at a non-towered field. Now, before we get too in-depth, let's break down the elements of a standard traffic pattern. A standard traffic pattern is one that uses a left-hand turn direction to standardize traffic flow and will typically be flown at 1,000 feet AGL. Any pattern that utilizes turn directions or altitudes other than these can be considered non-standard patterns. Case in point, the Grand Forks Airport uses non-standard patterns by requiring right turns for some of its runways and an 800-foot AGL traffic pattern altitude on all of them. Prior to operating into an unfamiliar airport, the pilot should first review the airport's specific operating procedures outlined in the Airport Facility Directory, or AFD, and the corresponding VFR sectional chart. If a traffic pattern utilizes non-standard right turns, it will be denoted as RP in the informational block next to the airport on a VFR sectional, or it will just spell it out as RGT TFC in the Airport Facility Directory. A traffic pattern is made up of 5 basic legs: the departure, commonly referred to as the upwind leg, the crosswind leg, downwind, base, and final. The legs make up a rectangle next to the active runway that is flown with airplane-specific power settings, configurations, and with a maximum bank angle of 30 degrees. A traffic pattern is always entered at a 45-degree angle to the midfield downwind leg and is always exited straight off the upwind leg or at a 45-degree angle in the direction of the pattern once reaching 500 feet AGL. In this standardization lesson, let's actually fly the pattern one leg at a time as we take a UND Piper Warrior from the hold short position all the way through a standard traffic pattern on 3-5 left at Grand Forks and then to a safe and successful landing. Prior to the flight, the pilot should have already determined the runway in use, pattern direction, pattern altitude, and any other pertinent airport information. At Grand Forks, the pilot will be cleared for takeoff by the control tower, and then the pattern can commence. The first leg, the upwind leg, is into the wind and should be flown at an optimum climb speed in the Warrior until reaching 300 feet below traffic pattern altitude and beyond the departure end of the runway. At this point, the pilot can make a medium banked left turn onto the crosswind leg. The crosswind leg is perpendicular to the upwind, downwind, and final legs. In the AeroCast episode entitled Rectangular Course, the pilot learned to effectively counter wind drift by applying a crosswind correction, or crab. In order to maintain an effective rectangular pattern, the pilot must crab into the wind on the crosswind leg to prevent drifting.